Okay, so had a few glitches, but now we're starting for real on the fourth class on the Four Great Vows. And so let me just move directly to sharing my screen and putting up the first slide. Let's see, right, and putting it into slideshow mode and swapping the displays. Okay, so now everybody should be seeing the big, yeah, good. So this class is going to cover the the second, or no, it's going to cover the, oh, sorry. This class is going to cover the third and the fourth of the Four Great Vows. And here is the translation up here. This one, Dharma gates are countless, we vow to learn them all, is one very common translation of the third vow. This is a way of translating the fourth vow. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, we vow to attain it. It's not the translation that I usually use, or probably that you might be used to. In particular on this word unsurpassable. This is much closer to the literal meaning of the characters, so I'm using it in this class as opposed to something like inconceivable or uncontrived or anything else. In fact, one of the slides will look at the different ways of translating what it is that the Buddha way does not have. So before going on, this is just a reminder of what the class schedule is going to be. We'll go to 3:35 with the first lecture and have a 5-minute break, and then go to 4:15, the second lecture, have a 10-minute break, and then we'll have discussion at the end, or I'll continue going on. And if there's anything that I don't manage to cover in this class, I'll put out an extra video. I think we should get to most of the material in this 2-hour time. Is before moving on, are there any questions or anything anyone wants to raise at this point? Okay, all right. So, yeah, let's look at, so this is what we're going to be looking at, these two lines right here, these 14 characters, okay? So let's look at the first line for this class, which is actually the third vow. Let's look at that first. And so this should be at least a little bit familiar by now. Every vow follows the same pattern, has 4 parts. The first 3 parts each have 2 characters. The fourth part is just 1 character. And so the first part of each vow is what the vow is about, what the vow is directed at. In the first vow, it's sentient beings. In the second vow, it's the kleshas, or greed, hatred, and ignorance, or whatever, delusions. In the third vow, the thing that the vow is directed at or is about is the Dharma gates. So these 2 characters mean Dharma gates, and they're the first part of the third vow. We'll talk more about these characters in a minute. The second part of each vow is what the first part doesn't have. And what Dharma gates do not have is any limit in their number. They are not enumerable. You cannot, if you tried to calculate them on your calculator, and I'll actually show a picture of this later. If you take these 2 characters and you do a Google search on them, the first thing that pops up is a picture of a calculator that has exceeded its threshold. It says this is not a number. This is beyond what the calculator can handle. Okay, so Dharma gates are countless. That is, you can't count them. They are without number in the sense that they're beyond any number that we have. the third part is always these two characters that mean vow, and always the same, what we're vowing. And well, no, the third part is that we are the fact that we are vowing. The fourth part is what it is that we are vowing. So Dharma gates are countless. We vowed to learn them. All right, that's how. So we're going to talk about each of these characters, except for the two that simply mean vow that we've already covered. The thing that the third vow is about, the Dharma gates, are these two characters, Fa and Men. Fa is Dharma. Men is gate. Men gets a lot of mileage in the Zen tradition. If you've ever heard of the Mumonkan or the Womenkan, that's the no gate collection of koans. And it kind of looks like a gate, you know? Don't you think it looks like a gate, kind of, this character? It does, pretty much. Now, we're not going to decompose this character, even though it has, so these, if you start to decompose this character, you get things that aren't particularly meaningful or useful. If you take apart this character here, the character for Dharma, you can get a lot of useful information out of taking this character apart. So we'll just leave this character as it is. Just leave it as a picture of a gate, and we'll look at how to actually write or draw the character in a little bit. The character for Dharma is made up of two parts. So Fa is made up of two parts, Shui, and this is actually a a radical or a component form of the character for water. If you were to just write water as a single word in Chinese, it wouldn't look like this, and we'll look at what it does look like. And this is a word, a very common word in Chinese, which just means, it's pronounced something like ku, but it means go, to go. Now, this word ku can be further broken down into the word tu for earth, which we've seen already, and the word si for self or secret. So this is a very common component. It's not very commonly encountered as a standalone word. It can mean self, it can mean secret, it can mean private, but the meaning isn't all that important because it's usually found only as a component. Whereas this character is often found on its own as a separate standalone character, and its meaning is earth or land or dirt or soil. So like, yeah, sometimes it's used in country names. The land of India is the character for India with this character right here, which is in the Sandokai. If you've ever chanted the Sandokai, the harmony of difference and sameness, the great sage of India. Anyway, all right. So this character, Tu, for Earth, is also a component of Shen for Earth. I mean, Shen for birth. I think it's Shen. We'll look at that in a minute. And then also two characters that we haven't seen yet, but we are going to see soon, that are part of this line or this lesson. C is also a component of this is gong, which means bow, and this is yeah, I forget how that's pronounced, but this is the character for same or as or is. This is the character that means same in mind is Buddha. This actually, mind is Buddha, literally in Chinese is same mind, same Buddha. Okay, and men, we're not going to decompose further. All right. Now, as I promised, we're going to encounter the earth again, and we're also going to see what Mu Liang, this is Mu Liang, which means without number. If you do a Google search on this, this is literally what pops up. Picture of a calculator with so when you try to calculate something, do a multiplication or whatever on your calculator, and the result is some number that's larger than your calculator is actually able to handle, it will display the highest number that your calculator can display, but then say, yeah, but it's bigger than that. And so that's what this means literally. This is the Dharma, the gates of the Dharma are beyond what you can count on your calculator. Also, this is kind of interesting, I think. If you've ever heard of the teaching of the four immeasurables, which in Chinese are called the four immeasurable minds. These are also called the Brahma Viharas. And these are an important part of they're also found in Theravadan Buddhism, but they're very important in Mahayana Buddhism, where they are a key part of the Bodhisattva path. These are the mental states, or sometimes called the positive emotions of a bodhisattva. And they are, these are them using the Chinese characters and the Sanskrit terms. This is Maitri. This is the kind of love that a bodhisattva has for all beings. Essentially, this kind of Maitri means a desire for all beings to be happy. Karuna Karuna is the second immeasurable mind, which means that when sentient beings are not happy, because we desire them to be happy, when they are not happy, we are sad. So this is often translated as compassion, or sometimes as sadness. This is mudita. This is joy, actually. So this means if we have the desire, which is the first immeasurable mind, the desire for all beings to be happy, when they are happy, we are happy too for them. And upeksha is equanimity. Anyway, but the important thing for our lesson is that this is another place where you encounter this two-character Chinese phrase, beyond measure, beyond unsurpassable. No, that's the next one. This is uncountable. Yeah. All right. So this character liang for to enumerate, or what can be enumerated, is made up of two parts. Dan. This is I'm pretty sure we have seen this before. This is a character Ri for sun, with the character for Yi underneath it, and it's literally a picture of the sun coming up over the horizon. This is the second component of Liang, which is Li, or village. It also means, sometimes you'll see that it's supposed to be like a unit of distance, sometimes called a Chinese mile, which is like, I don't know, maybe it's related to the size of a village, but we'll just say it's village, Li, village. So, and both of these components can be further broken down. Dan, of course, Ri and Yi, it's two components. Li, village, is made up of this very interesting and often encountered both character and component Tian for field. This represents a farmer's field that's just been cut up into different patches. And Tu again, I promised that we would encounter Tu again for Earth. Tian field is another example of the character for Wei, with another character inside of it, Shi or Ten. Let's see. Okay, all right, good. Looks like the recording is working. Yeah. So we've covered so far Dharma gates, and without a limit, or we use the word limit for sentient beings. Dharma gates uncountable. So what do we vow to do with these Dharma gates that are uncountable? And this is sometimes in talking about or looking at Chinese characters, I'll think, oh, I really like this character. I usually don't think that when I come across the character shui for learn. This is a difficult character, and it has a lot of strokes in it. We'll spend some time taking this character apart and looking at it. But it's a very important character. Uh, uh, yeah. So it's important in Buddhism. Any kind of training or study in Buddhism is usually referred to as some kind of learning. Um, and as usual, this is I've gone to the digital dictionary of Buddhism to look up every possible meaning and implication of this character. But I want to focus on how it's written. So this is a very complicated slide. But it's a very complicated slide for a very complicated character. Now I didn't show before, this is, okay, yeah, good. All right. So what I didn't show before was how to take the character shui apart into its components. The first component, this component, I'm almost 100% positive that no one ever uses this as a standalone character in Chinese. This, on the other hand, as we will see, is a very common character in Chinese. So shui, one part of shui is also called shui, which is not too uncommon in Chinese. The second part is called zi, or probably more like z, z. If I knew how to pronounce Mandarin, it would be something more like that. So the point of this slide, this character is good to know, and it's not too much of a problem to see it. We'll look at it a little bit more closely in a minute. This component, I don't know, just at least for me, it's a little overwhelming. Learning how to write it is, I'm still really struggling with it. These are all the strokes in it. Each stroke. So the strokes that are on this side of the character, so the red strokes and the black strokes, the blue strokes and the orange strokes and the green strokes and the purple strokes, just the fact that I have to use so many different colors to represent different kinds of strokes. And then there's 3 red strokes, there's 2 black strokes, there's 4 blue ones, there's 2 orange ones, and there's a purple one and a green one. And this shows the direction and the order in which the strokes are written. And this would probably be a good time to look at a stroke order animation. So let me do that now. Let's see. I think this is, yeah. Okay, I don't want to look at that. So do we now see a big version of the character Shui up on your screen? Okay, let me move this out of my way so I can get to the button. Okay. So, and here's what it looks like when it's being written. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and that's just the top part. And then 1, 2, 3, 3 strokes for the bottom part. And now, one of the reasons why I do not like this character is because the main component, the one that you really need to look at, isn't in the database for most of the tools that you can find online that show you the stroke order animation. You can only see it if you look at it as part of a character, which we can do, which we're doing here. Anyway, now the other parts, see, this part can, anyway, so I'm going to go back to the, yeah, let's go back to the main presentation now. And, oh yeah, no, that was wrong. Okay. Yeah, so there's nothing really that you can do with this except just to practice it. And so the component parts are actually, if you break shui up into its component parts, they're actually kind of interesting. Jiu mortar, mortar as in this substance that's used to hold things together, like brick and mortar. It's not an extremely common character, but it's seen. It gets around. Um, Yao or hexagram is not an extremely common character, but it is an interesting one because when hexagram, this literally refers to the lines of a hexagram in the I Ching. So this does have some interest in Chinese culture, and the character mi or lid is extremely common in. Actually, I will bring up the this again to look at these components once again. So we can look at this is shui, and we try to look at the component shui, but it's not in the database. But we can look at each of these components. So here's the Jiu mortar and how it's written. And one of the reasons why it's interesting to look at the way the components are written is because when you put them together into a composite character, they're written like this, but just as part of the character that they're in. Let's go back and look at. And one of the things that's, at least to me, is a little frustrating about this component is that these two X's are different. Chinese characters has two different little X's that it uses. And then the lid component here. Oops, I don't know what that popped up. And that just has two strokes. Now over here on the side of on the right side in this kind of aquamarine square, each of the characters that contains a lid component is highlighted. So there's actually two characters in the Four Great Vows, and then one of the extra characters that I've asked you to learn, which is the character for emptiness, Kong, is also contains the lid character. And if you look at the Heart Sutra, or if you look at any other, really anything else written in Chinese, you'll find this component quite a bit. The other two characters, the Jiu or mortar, and the Yao character, those are not particularly common. Let's see. I'm going to put faces down here. I'm going to go the slideshow, current slide. Here we go. Okay. Now, the second part of shui, which is Z, the character Z, this is loud. So I haven't really talked about this, but the pronunciation of the characters that I've been presenting is what's called pinyin, the pinyin pronunciation, which is the modern pronunciation. So when you hear people say Beijing, they're referring to the capital of China using the pinyin pronunciation. When you hear people say Peking, they're referring to the Wade Giles pronunciation. And I don't, yeah, I guess I think there might have been one person or maybe two people named Wade and Giles who came up with this way of transcribing the sounds of the Chinese language using the Western alphabet. But in this case, when we write it in pinyin, it looks like it should be Lao Zi or Lao Zi, yeah, Lao Zi, but it's actually pronounced more like Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu. If you hear somebody who actually knows how to pronounce Mandarin and they talk about the guy that is still usually referred to as Lao Tzu, they'll say in Mandarin Lao Tzu, something like Lao Tzu. If you hear anybody who knows how to pronounce Mandarin refer to the person who is usually referred to in English as Confucius, they'll say something like Kongzi. And the person who's usually referred to in English as Mencius will be referred to as Mengzi, Mengzi, something like that. And so in this case, so Lao Tzu or Lao Tzu is the old master. Lao means old. This means old. This character here is a very common character in Chinese. This character is a family name. The first character in Confucius's name, or Kangzi's name, is a family name, and he is the master of the Kang family. So the great teacher, just as Shakyamuni Buddha is Shakya is a family name. So he's the jewel of the Shakyas. This is a little bit like calling Shakyamuni Buddha Shakyamuni, calling Confucius he's the master that comes from the Kang family. And I believe it's the same with Mencius. If you know anything about Chinese philosophy, you'll have heard of Confucius and Mencius. Oops, sorry about that. Now, here we go. If you know anything about Chinese philosophy, you'll have heard of Confucius and Mencius, and this is where their names come from. This is where their actual Chinese names come from, their family names with a master stuck on the end. In the Heart Sutra, when we say Sadi Ja, when we say the Heart Sutra in English, there's a lot of references, or at least to Shariputra. This is in Chinese. This is using a different meaning of the character Z, which is son or child. So it's actually this is the Chinese attempt at transcribing sorry son into so that Chinese people can pronounce it. Okay, so that's the third vow. And I'm just going to go right into the fourth vow, but we won't get all the way through it. So let's focus on the Buddha way, and then still take our break at 3:35. So Buddha way, if frequently I've made references to the fact that, like, often you can just take one character or two characters and put them into a search field in a search engine like Google or DuckDuckGo and get interesting results. This character is so associated in people's minds with Buddhism, and this character is so associated with people's minds with Taoism, because this is the character for Tao. And if you do a search on these two characters together, usually you'll get something about somebody comparing Buddhism and Taoism. And you'll notice that in the previous vow, let's go back and look at the previous vow real quickly. The Dharma gate, so we referred to the Dharma already, okay? And so in the fourth vow, we don't say the Buddha Dharma. Now that's also a way of expressing the same thing in Chinese. You can say the Buddha Dharma. Because Dharma in Chinese doesn't necessarily mean the Buddha Dharma. It means any, actually the word Dharma means law. So it means, so when we say Dharma in Chinese, when we use the word Fa, it's talking about the law, taught by the Buddha. And this just means the way that is taught by the Buddha way. Anyway, and so what is it that the Buddha way doesn't have? The Buddha way doesn't have anything better than it. So Mu, I think this is Sheng or Shang. We'll get to that in a second. And we vow to accomplish it. So we're going to look at each of these. The use of Tao in this particular context is kind of interesting, referring to the teachings of the Buddha as the Tao. This is a very, very Chinese thing. Um, and it's also cool that in learning the Four Great Vows, we learned this very interesting character in Chinese that is the Great Tao, taught by Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu. All right. So if we take apart the character for Buddha, Fu, um, it includes, and I don't really think that this is like a really part of the official etymology of the character for Buddha. In fact, um, where this combination of components, who thought of this and what the intention of putting these components together to mean Buddha is not something that's really well understood. But it literally means not, or it literally means person not. And then this component, which is not a very common Chinese character, this component for not can be broken down into two really common components, pie for slash and gun for rod, and then gong for bow, which we've seen already. I just want to say something about this component, this first component, PA. Whenever one sees one of these little lines on top of a character, this is usually said to be the component PA. But when the PA is written in this form, when it's not just a little tick mark on top of a character, when it's written in its full glory, then it is like this. So these are really two different, very different forms of what are supposed to be the same character. One is very small, and one is really goes the whole length of the character in the case of Buddha. And over here is a graphic. Let's see if I have it bigger. Oh yeah, this is even bigger. This is all the characters in the Four Great Vows that contain the component PA. And as you can see, here it's in the little mark at the top of there. It's a little mark at the top here. Little mark. It's in here twice. Again. In all these cases, it's just the little form, except for, and yeah, I think, yeah, we haven't gotten to this. In here, where does it show up? I think it's this slash here. We'll have to get to, yeah. The composition of the very last character in the Four Great Vows is a little messy. Okay, so now it's 3:35. I want to take our break now and come back in 5 minutes. And if anybody has any questions, I'll take questions or comments in 5 minutes. Okay, good. All right, I'm back, and we're still, let's see, still sharing? No, okay, so I got to share my screen again, I think. Here we go. Get rid of this, and y'all can see the screen, correct? Okay, so, oh yeah, I do want to talk a little bit more about this component PA or slash. Let me see. Let me try something. yeah, good. Let's see if we can get this. I'm going to try to rearrange the little squares. That didn't help. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Zoom is not cooperating with me right now, but I'm going to try to. Okay. Oh, that's why. Yeah, Zoom is getting confused because I have another screen attached to my laptop. And let's see if I can get it to, yeah, good. Okay. Now, okay. I want to go through these characters that we've been talking about in the third vow. And just go through them a little bit more. I kind of ran through it pretty quickly. Let's look at them again, how they're drawn. And even though you can kind of learn to recognize the characters by sight, until you learn how to write them one stroke at a time, you don't really know the character. So I want to do that at least quickly with each of the ones we've already done. This is the character Fa, or Dharma. It's the first character. So obviously, Dharma is an interesting character for Buddhists to know. And it's also a character. Now, I said it means law. And so actually, if you want to talk about an illegal act in, not in a Buddhist sense, but just in a legal sense, it's mufa, wufa, not law. And also, as we know, in the Heart Sutra, we chant, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. There it's referring to things. So these meanings are up here in this. It means thing. Can also mean thought. So there are mental dharmas. Dharma has a lot of meanings. Now let's look at the components of dharma. So the first component of dharma is these three little lines here, written like this: 1, 2, 3. The third component comes up, and this is the radical form of water. Now, I've included water in this lesson as one of the so-called extra characters. It's not a character that it shows up either on its own or as a component in the Four Great Vows. But here it is. And here's how it's written. One line right down the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this character as a component doesn't show up very much, whereas the one we were looking at before is a component of a lot of characters. It's a component of Dharma and many other things. Components aren't showing up here, but I'm not sure why that is. So the second component of Dharma is ku, which means to go. This is just a character for Earth on top of this character C, which means self, private, or secret. Let's go back to. So if you know how to write these two components, the strokes, where the strokes go, the order that they go in, the direction of the strokes is the same whether they're written as standalone characters or as components in another character. They just have to be compressed so that the components fit together in the same in the spaces taken up by a character. So first you write the character for Tu or Earth, and then right underneath it you write the character for C, which is self or private or secret. So this character comes first, and of course it had to be compressed to fit into the upper half of the square when it's part of that character. Just as let's go back. Okay. Yeah. So C has to be compressed down to fit into the square to be on the bottom half of the character. Okay, I kind of jumped over the character for gate, men, just because I'm a little maybe overly focused on characters that can be broken down into components. If you try to break this character down into components, you don't get things that are very useful, in my opinion. And so here's how it's drawn. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And both sides are kind of mirror images of the other, but there's a little hook down here at the bottom. And so the character, if we were to look at, for example, now I'm going to change over. I'm going to look at the Heart Sutra. No, it doesn't show up in the Heart Sutra. Yeah, that was a bad idea. All right, but some of these characters, the character for Dharma, does show up in the Heart Sutra. I can do a search. Should be able to find it here. Yeah. So on Sadija Shi J Bop Kongsang, Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. Yeah, that's where the character for Dharma shows up in the Heart Sutra. The display over here, the aquamarine field, in this version of the program is squished because I wanted to make the display area for the individual characters bigger. If we were to look at this is the unsquished version. Look here, and we can find, yeah. So this is the line where we say Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness, and this is the line where we say no color, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind. And so object of mind here is this is color. Oh yeah, so these are just listed. So in the Chinese, it doesn't actually say no color, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind. It says no color, sound, smell, taste, touch, or object of mind. And so this is touch. This is the character for touch. And so Dharma here is the word fa or Dharma in the Heart Sutra is being translated as object of mind, which is another meaning of Dharma. Which I was trying to say before, but I think it makes more sense. The word Dharma in Sanskrit has a lot of different meanings. One of which is to refer to all the variety of ways that the Buddha taught. And that's what Dharma gates are about. So Dharma gates, we've seen Mu before, right? Now let me go back to the one with the big. All right. We've seen Mu before. Let's look at this big character here. And so this is the character Ri for sun. This is the character Yi. This is the character Tian for village. And then this is the character for earth. So the line going down this way, can you see where I'm indicating the line there, everybody? Okay, so this line is the center line of Tian, and it merges into the center line of earth. So this line here in earth gets stuck up into or merges with the center line of the character for village when they're stuck together. So let's actually look at that. If we look at the bottom half, so this is the character for liang, or immeasurable. And so one thing to notice, let me just point out, is in this, can you see how I made this, is the character much bigger now for you? In this representation, this font, really it's a difference in fonts. Chinese fonts can be really kind of frustrating and maddening. This one, it makes this character kind of squat, where the squares are very wide. But in the font that's being used when the stroke order animation is written out, the squares are much narrower. So the squares take up much less of the space of the character than they do in this other font. So I like this font just because it's very blocky, and it's a little easier to learn how to draw the characters when you're doing them this way, because the lines are yeah, just because they're very blocky. It's all straight lines and mostly right angles. This is much more the way Chinese people write in handwriting, or at least the way they try to write. But in this particular font, you can see a difference in the way the appearance of this, the blocky appearance of this versus the much narrower appearance of this. Okay, so now let me look at so this is Liang. This is the character that means to measure, to estimate, to evaluate. This is the bottom part of it, Li. And so when Li is written, the upper part of Li is the character Tian for field. But then that middle line in Lian is shared with the lower part. So here's Tian by itself. And then this middle line in Tian is extended directly into the oh no, that's extended into the middle line of the lower part of Li, which is Tu, or Earth. And then we've talked about before, but just again, since it's a nice, easy character, easy to draw and easy to remember and easy to see why it means what it means. The sun coming up over the horizon, which means dawn. Okay. Now, we've talked about these two characters, Shi and Yuan. And yeah, this is probably worth just saying again. In the Four Great Vows, each line has 6 characters, and each line has 7 characters, but the first 6 characters come in groups of 2. And this is really, really, really common in Chinese for characters to group together, so that the real meaning of what's being talked about has to be understood by looking at 2 characters at a time. In each line, the final character stands on its own. But if you, and I've talked about this before, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. I might have even shown this before. I'm going to go ahead and do a live Google search on this character and look at what comes up. And so Yuan, which in Chinese Buddhism, when when you talk about vows, usually it's this character that's used. Yuan is the character that is most commonly used as a single character word for vow. And if we look at Wiktionary, which is a really great source of information, it says that it actually means to desire, to want, to wish. I don't know if you can see that very well. This is where do people go? Yeah, there we are. To desire, to want, to wish. And see here, in religion, in Buddhism in particular, this character means vow. And so Jijang Bosal is known as the Bodhisattva of Great Vows. And when Jijang Bosal is referred to as the Bodhisattva of Great Vows, this is the character that's used for that vow. This character right here. But let's look at the second character. So that's the character Yuan. That's actually the second character. Let's look at the first character, she. And if we do a Google search on she, see right here, it says that it means vow, and it has a picture of two people getting married. So in Buddhism, vow is often to express vow in Buddhism often uses that other character yuan. In everyday Chinese, when people say I'm vow, especially in the context of wedding, they will often use this character, she, and because they both kind of mean vow, and because in the Chinese language there is a tendency to put two characters together to make a two-character combination. In this particular context, that's what's going on. These two characters that we've already talked about. This was one of the first characters we talked about in the first class because it's, of course, has to be the title of the Four Great Vows, which is literally four great vows. But it happens so often in Chinese that it's worth. This isn't, the point of teaching these classes isn't like to try to teach people Chinese, but as you're going through things like the Four Great Vows or any other basic teaching or text or practice in Chinese, you'll encounter over and over again this pattern of two characters being used. Okay, all right, now, and we've already looked at probably as much as we need to right now. This character, let's just watch it being written one last time. The character for shui or learn. Just one interesting thing about this character, in all the different translations of the Four Great Vows, this is one of the characters that causes the most consternation because many Zen people, Zen teachers don't want to say learn. It sounds unzen. And so people come up with lots of ways of getting around it. In Chinese, this character just means you learn something. You learn it by studying and practicing it, which is not unzen, but it sounds unzen in a lot of people's ears. Anyway, so let me go back to the presentation, and now we're going to pick up again on the. Just got to make sure that not screwing up the time. And speaking of this time, let me just check back with the very first slide. So this period will go up to 4:15. So we got another almost 15 full minutes. And let's get back to the Buddha way. All right. So in the fourth and final vow, the Buddha way is when looking at the characters, it's a little bit more literally close to the literal meaning of the characters. Say unsurpassable. Buddha way is without anything higher. We vow to accomplish it. We'll look at all those parts. We looked at Buddha in some, and we'll go back over like I did for the third vow. We'll go back over each of these characters again just to see them being written. Again, this is all the characters that has have PA, the slash component, in one form or another. And now let's look at Dao. So Dao has one of the most commonly encountered components in Chinese, which is this swooping line coming down here. We'll see how it's written, and there's actually multiple ways of writing this, unfortunately. Um, and this comes down and around this character. So this is chou, and we've actually already encountered that. And I think sometimes when I put things into PowerPoint, PowerPoint doesn't like the diacritic marks and it takes them off. I think that's happened on this one. But so Dao is made up of chou, which means to walk, plus shou, which means to best. So Dao means the best path. That's the literal meaning of the Chinese character for Dao, is the best path. And so that's a very good example of a Chinese character where the components, each of the main components are very meaningful and tell you what the character means. And I've got my display over on the other screen. So if you see me looking off on the side as if I'm talking to somebody else here, I'm actually talking to you, but I'm looking in the wrong place from your perspective. This character for show or best can be further broken down into chou. So this is a component form of the character for grass. This is a very commonly encountered component. The actual character for grass is rarely, if ever, well, I mean, if you're talking about, probably if you, and I haven't looked this up, but if you're trying to find out how do I say I'm going to go cut the grass in Chinese, the standalone character for grass is probably used in there. But usually when you encounter chou, it's in this component form. And this, of course, is good old Z, which we saw before. We saw Z in as a component of yuan, which is one of the two characters that make up vowel. So this here on the right is shou or best. If you take the two things that are on top of shou and kind of invert them the other way, put them on the bottom, then you get yay. So the thing is that both yay and shou have this Z character with the line across it. Not with, and then you take these two things and you can put them on the top or on the bottom. I don't know how helpful that is, but I when I look at those two characters, I say, these two characters, why do they look so similar? And it's because the part that's in black in both of these is the same. It's just a little bit compressed, and then the part that's in red is the only thing that's different between these two characters. All right, so the Buddha way. So much for the Buddha way, right? This is the second part of Buddha way. So the Buddha is pronounced Fu. Wei is pronounced Dao. Fu Dao is without anything higher. And so here, Shang, this is a very simple character. This is a nice character, easy to write, 3 strokes. And it's the first syllable in the name of the Chinese city Shanghai. So Shanghai means on the water or on the sea. So this means upon. So this is a common word in Chinese. So if you go to hsk.academy, HSK is the name of the standardized tests for people who are learning Chinese as a foreign language. And so if you do a Google search on any character and HSK, it'll tell you whether or not that's and what HSK level it's in. I think this is in either level 1 or 2. But it means upon, on top, above, and this is so above and upper or first, these are the senses that it's being used in the Four Great Vows. Anything that's above or first, before. But in Shanghai, it means upon the sea. This character is not one that we're going to talk about, but it just happens to show up in the name of one of China's most famous and important cities, Shanghai. Now, here's a slide that I promised previously that says different translations of Wu Shang: unsurpassable, beyond attainment, endless, incomparable, infinite, highest, supreme, unsurpassed, nothing higher, not above, inconceivable, and uncontrived. And there's probably other ones that people use. These are just different variations that I found from looking around or from my own knowledge of different translations of the Four Great Vows. These are different ways that people have tried to express this. One of the problems with expressing, especially this part, the third part of each vow, always starts with the character mu, and then it's something that the thing doesn't have, and usually it's like it's mostly variations on it doesn't have any limit, it doesn't have any number, it doesn't have any it's the Buddha way. See here, infinite is one of the translations that's used for Wu Shang, but this is also a translation that can be used for Wu Liang, which was in fact, Wu Liang more literally means infinite, beyond the ability to count, than Wu Shang does. But and my point isn't to say that one translation is better than another. My point is actually the opposite, to point out that all these translations are helping us to see what's really going on here, and also they're helping us to see that there are limitations to any of the words that we choose. Okay, so this is the last word, literally, in the Four Great Vows. Cheng, to do, to bring about, to perfect, to finish, to complete, to succeed. Those are contributed by Charles Muller to the Digital Dictionary of Buddhism. To consist of, to materialize, to be concluded, to form, to be completed, fulfillment, consummation. So you can see some of these, and here it gets even closer to what we're talking about: realization, fruition, to become a Buddha, awakening, enlightenment, the whole, perfect. But it can also mean 1/10. To be clearly apparent. Okay, and so this character, along with the one that I was just talking about a few slides back, Yuan, which in Korean, Sino-Korean, is pronounced won. So this is Cheng in pinyin or Mandarin. When Koreans say this character, they pronounce it something like song. Actually, my pronunciation of Korean is a little bit closer to what Korean actually sounds like than my pronunciation of Mandarin is to what Mandarin actually sounds like. But that didn't stop Zen Master Sung San from making all of his students chant in Korean. He knew he couldn't possibly teach us how to chant so that it sounded correctly. He just got us to chant so that it sounded I don't know, good enough. I don't know if that's the right phrase. But here, this is a mantra from Won Song Chui Jinon. Yeah, this is in both Kwanseum Bosal chanting and in Jijang Bosal chanting. Have this mantra, and this is the chanting for. Let's see. Do I have that slide? Did I put that in here? No, I didn't. Or did I? Oh yeah, I did. I'll get back to it. So this is this is a lucky chant. Okay, so you often so the chant means Wong Sun Chui Jinon is the title of the chant, which means vow accomplish, and then the second part is mantra. So this is the mantra for accomplishing your vow. Okay, but if you remember when we were looking at yuan before, it also said that yuan means desire or wish. So if you're a very good Buddhist, then you make vows to save all beings, and you chant this mantra to help you to accomplish your great vow. But Buddhists also have other desires and wishes, to improve their lives, to uh, anyway. And so this you can chant this for all kinds of different more mundane desires and wishes, and so it's very popular. And this is not really directly relevant to this class, but Om Amoga Sabadara Sadaya Shibe Om. That's the mantra. Uh, and so here we have a two. Oops. We have a two character combination. I'm looking down here now. Um, The first one, Cheng, which is what we're actually talking about right now, is the first character. The second character here is Ju, which means to complete. So the first one means to succeed. The second character means to complete. Put them together, and you have a two-character word that means to accomplish. So you accomplish your desire or your vow and you're helped to do so by chanting this mantra, which is an excellent mantra to learn. Now, it's also very popular, and I'm actually gonna return talk to them about that mantra a little bit more in the next slide. This is another place where Cheng, or Song as it's pronounced in Sino-Korean. This is in Homage to the Three Jewels. Jata Ilshi Song. This is at the very end of the Three Jewels, and the Homage to the Three Jewels. What we're chanting is self, self and other, same time, which basically means it's not about that Netflix show. There's a Netflix show now. I think it's Netflix. Everything, everywhere, at the same time. I think it's the title of it. But this is all beings together attain the Buddha way. That's what we're chanting at the very end of the Homage to the Three Jewels. And this is Song, and this is Bull To. So this is 3 out of the 7 characters in the Fourth Great Vow are actually at the very end of the Homage to the Three Jewels. All right. Now, the mantra for the accomplishment of great aspirations. Yeah, I wanted to put this slide up again, just to show these are little talismans that you can buy from Korean websites that have this mantra in different forms written on it. They're lucky charms, but they're Buddhist lucky charms. And if you're familiar with, for example, the Lotus Sutra and other Buddhist teachings, where the Buddha explains how, well, a lot of you people out there are like children caught in a burning building who are too stupid to get out. The only way for me to get you out is to offer you goodies. And so these are goodies. These are what Zen Master Sung San would refer to as Dharma candy. If you recite the Great Dharani 1,000,000 times, you'll get a better job, or things of that sort. And this is actually quite popular. This kind of practice using mantras to improve your life in a very mundane but very real sense. Let's see. Oh yeah. So this mantra is in the Jijang Bosal, Kwansin Bosal, Namu Amida Bol, and Sogamoni Bol chants. And in Korean, it's spelled out prayer to make one's wish come true. And so this is all by way of understanding this very last word in the Four Great Vows, Cheng, or as it's pronounced in, let's see, how are we pronouncing it in Song in Sino-Korean. Okay, so now I've gone a little bit over the time for this period. Let's take a 10-minute break. and then we'll come back and go until 5 and finish up. Okay. Let's see if I can get this to work. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay, so now we're in the home stretch. Let's see. We have covered all the characters, but there we go. So now I want to revisit. So there's kind of two things that I want to do with the rest of the class. One is to oh, this could be dangerous. What if I actually click on this link? I want to talk about chanting. I'm going to try this live. You can hear me, right? Everybody can hear me, correct? Yeah. So that actually kind of worked the way I hoped it would. So it's not. It came in a little bit before we chant. I'm gonna click on it again. So this is from a recording that some of you may sound a little familiar to some of you. This is from a recording of the chanting of the Thousand Hands and Eyes Sutra. This is a YouTube video, and what I've done is I've added to the YouTube video the timestamp. Comes in a little early, but when you hear Bao Song so on, that means we are now reciting the Four Great Vows. Okay, and then it goes on. So after in the Four Great not Four Great Vows, in the Thousand Hands and Eyes Sutra, we chant Bao Bao Saong Soon, Jung Seng Mubyon Soon Do, Bone Mujin Soon Dan, Bomun Muriang Soon Hak, Bulto Musang Soon Song, and then there's another version of the Four Great Vows that has some extra wording attached to it that comes from the Platform Sutra that's added on before the very end of the Four Great Vows. But if you're going to learn how to write just about anything in Chinese characters, it's good to have a verbalization to go along with it. And Bao, Song, Soan, Jungseng, Mubyon, Soan Do, Bone, Mujin, Soan Dan, Bomun, Muriang, Soan Hak, Bulto, Musang, Soan Song is a good verbalization, a good way of saying the Four Great Vows. if you're trying to learn how to write them, or just if you're trying to learn these characters. Yes. So I talked a little bit about uh, the character for water, shui, which is uh, the standalone character, which has the radical, uh, which is also shui, which is the left component of the character for dharma, fa. Um, this is the first part when people chant the Four Great Vows. They usually precede it by saying "Bao Song Soong." I am now chanting, or we are now a vow. So one translation of this is to avow. We are avowing. So there's many different translations of this character, including to shoot or launch. So we are now launching the Four Great Vows is another way of saying this. This is yet another example of a two-character combination. The first character, which is this fa. Second part is another character that's pronounced she, and it also just means this is the second part. She is more usually associated with like shooting an arrow, like out of a bow and arrow. But if you put them together, it's the word that's used for launch, as in launching a rocket. Um, and so we're going to look at the composition of fa in a minute. We're going to look at, okay. Composition of fa is it has, yeah, we're going to look at this character too. We're going to break it down. Here's shu, which is part of fa. Here is jie, which is if you take tian, which we looked at as part of a liang, which is a character for counting or things that can be counted, and combine it with this character that's also pronounced J, you get a character that means realm or a place or time. Let's look at these a little bit more. Okay. So, shui is water. This is a really common Chinese character. I don't know if we really need to say any more about that, other than just to remind ourselves why it's here at all, because the radical form of this character is the left component of fa or dharma. Different fa with a different tone. You'll notice that the diacritic over the a is different here. So the tone, if I knew how to pronounce tones, I could demonstrate that difference. This means to avow or emit or launch or start something. It's made up of three components. This interesting little component up here is sometimes it's actually a radical in Chinese. It's not a very common radical, but there's only 214 radicals in Chinese. I don't know why I say only. That seems like a lot, but actually, when you consider the fact that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of Chinese characters, um, for the most part, they're all just rearrangements of a few hundred components. This is bow or footsteps. Gong, which we've seen before, which is a bow. And then this new component, shu, which means tool. And just to remind us, the a gong is a component of hong, which is the second character in the Four Great Vows, in the title of the Four Great Vows. Shu, which means tool, is made up of this. It's two characters placed on top of each other. The character G for stool and the character for Yao again. And this character is a component of Du, which is the thing that is being the action of the first vow. This is what we vow to do with respect to sentient beings to save. It has this as a component. J, which one of the meanings of J is realm, is made up of the character for Tian And then underneath Tian, these little lines are really the component of Ren or person. And then we have another example of Pie, slash, and Gun, Ra. These are also components of Buddha, as I have down here, just as a reminder. You think you've seen this before, you have. And we've also seen Tian before. And we've seen Ren before. In this form, this is the primary form that Ren appears as a basically as a very minimalist stick figure of a person. This is a stick figure of a person without the arms or the head, just two legs. And this is a different representation. This is the component form of Ren that is found in the character Sheng for birth, and this is the component form that's found in Buddha. All right. Oh, so I really like the idea of learning how to say these characters as you're learning how to write them. And so here it is once again, along with the translation. Bao Song Soan Jung Seng Mubion Soan Do Bone Mujin Soan Dan Bomun Muriang Soan Hak Bulto Musang Soan Song. And so one of the things that if you think about what is a Chinese character, one of the things that is being demonstrated in this slide is that there's actually three things that every Chinese character has. It has a physical form, a shape, and that is what you see when you look at the character. You can recognize the shape, the different shapes of each character as the form, the shape, the physical aspect of the character. It has a sound that is associated with it. And in the case of Chinese characters, the sound depends upon whether you are a native speaker of Mandarin or if you speak Korean or Japanese or Vietnamese or none of those. Then you have to pick one. But you can associate a sound with the character. And then it has to have a meaning. So I have here the meanings as well. So making the four great vows, Bao, Song, so on. Every character must have a shape, a sound, and a meaning. And really, that's the body, speech, and mind of a character. You can't have a character without a body. You can't have a character that doesn't say something, and you don't. And without the third component, the characters would be meaningless. So in English, our letters, and in languages that just have alphabets, the characters themselves don't have meaning by themselves. Uh, letter B by itself doesn't mean anything other than it means the letter B. Um, but in Chinese, every character has an intrinsic meaning. And as we've seen, often they have multiple meanings. So in this slide, we have the shape of the character, the sound, and the meaning for each one, for each character. And some of these translations are more literally accurate than others. Sometimes we insert little words like we and vow. This doesn't really mean sentient beings without number we vow to save. It means sentient. It means everything alive, no limit, vow, save. That's the literal meaning. This is close to the literal meaning here. All right. And then something that I've mentioned, I can't remember how much I went into this previously. Actually, this is a repeat, pretty close to a repeat from the ending slides of the last lecture. But just because this is good to know, actually quite helpful. This is the the Korean way of representing the sound for the characters, which is Hangul. One of the good things about Hangul is that there will be a one-to-one correspondence between the Hangul and the Chinese character. Now, notice how when we try to when we write it out in English in a translation, It's not one-to-one. We end up adding things, and but in Hangul, this doesn't really represent the meaning, because even though this is being written out in the script that Korean people use, the individual Hangul characters are just being used for their sound. So this is the Hangul character that means ba, that doesn't mean, it probably does have some meaning. Bao, sa, hong, so, won. Uh, yeah, and this is just hopefully not belaboring the point, but just reiterating that when we look at the sound of the characters, there is one of the advantages of looking at the Hangul is that there will be one Hangul character for each Chinese character, and that tells you the sound that Korean people associate with that character. Um, and this is for the glaciers, Dharma gates. This is the first vow that we did in this lesson, and this is the last vow in this, and the last vow that we did in this lesson as well. Um, this is oh yeah, so this is one thing that's different. I had the same slide in the last lecture, but I've actually made some improvements to these flashcards that I'm um, uh, making for the Heart Sutra, for all of the characters and the components in the Heart Sutra. Um, all right. So now we arrive at the homework slide. All the characters here in red on this slide are the new characters and the new components for this lesson, the final lesson in the Four Great Vows. Um, so other than Mu and the vows, the part that says, we vow, the Shi Yuan, or So Wan, as it's pronounced in Sino-Korean. All of these are new. And then also they end up having quite a few new components to go along with them as well, which we've gone over um, one by one in this class. And then I threw in, so you shouldn't really just learn this component, shui, on its own. You should learn it as the radical form of this character, because it is good to know what you're writing. If you learn how to write the Four Great Vows, it's good to know what you're writing. And when you're writing this component, you should know that it means water, and that when water is written, when shui is written as a standalone character, it's written like this. Even though if you look at this, they're not they don't look the same, do they? It's hard to say how you get from this to this, but that's the way it is. When you take this component and combine it with this component, that's how you get dharma, right? So that's why we have this here. The two components of this, of ku, which means go, have already been covered. There are two, earth, and sea, which means secret, self, private. This is li. So now we're moving on to the liang, the thing that dharma gates do not have. Um, uh, this is the components for that, li and tian. And then also, yeah, I didn't assign separately the other really nice component that's on top, which is just the character for sun sitting on top of the character for one. Once again, just representing the sun coming up over the horizon. The character for, which means dawn in Chinese, and it's also pronounced dan. All right, and then we have this, I think it's jiu, or mortar, as in the stuff that holds bricks together. Yao, the hexagrams, the solid and broken lines that make up the I Ching. Z, or more properly pronounced Z, which can mean both master and son or child. I think this was what was this? Fu? What was that? So I'm gonna cheat because I can't remember. Uh, all the way back here. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Where am I now? Buddha. Fu Buddha, Fu not. So the character for Buddha is pronounced Fu, and the component, its main component is pronounced Fu. In this case, the component and the character even have the same um, uh, tone. All right. And this was, yeah, this is the component that means best. These are the extra characters that we talked about as well, which are good to know. Um, this the only thing that's being added with these extra characters is water, which I already talked about. This is what you need if you're going to say the four great vows. This is basically how you say, "I'm going to say the four great vows." Vows is fa, and then J. So the reason why I included J is because we do have the component for to or world, which in included in the components that we're learning. But if you want to say the word world in Chinese, you have to combine to with J, and that means world in Chinese. So these are all the new characters for this lesson. Since this is the this is the last slide of the last class, I wanted to bring back good old master GE. This is the Korean pronunciation of his name, and he is the one who wrote the Four Great Vows in the form that we have. He didn't invent them in any sense. He looked at the actually he formulated the Four Great Vows first by extracting and I don't have this right here, but he was looking at the Lotus Sutra. He found a place in the Lotus Sutra where it said these are the four vows of a bodhisattva, and he wrote those down, and then he kind of worded them. So these four vows that we have come from GE, but GE got them from the Lotus Sutra. Yeah, so we've got a few minutes left for questions, comments. One thing that I didn't do, if someone doesn't stop me, I will go back through the characters in the last line and and just kind of go over how they're drawn, which I think is really useful. I do want to have that included in the recording for this class for people to see. But please break in if anybody has a question. But I do want to just quickly go over how this is not what I want to look at. What I want to see. Where's my oh, this is something on Slack. What did I do with my okay, I'm gonna have to open up a new browser window and look at oh no, I'm gonna go to yeah. So in the four vows, the last line is here. Oh, it'd be even better though if I look at the yeah, sorry. All right, so Buddha is written the character for Ren, followed by the character Fu, which means not. And Fu, in turn, has the J and the Gun component, and then the Gong component, which we've seen a couple times, written like this. Now, this is worth looking at. So let's look at the chuò component of Dao. This is one way of writing it. 1 stroke, 2 strokes, 3 strokes. And when you combine this with other components, this bottom component here always goes underneath the rest of the character. And we saw that in also in this extremely complicated character beyond, which is the thing that sentient beings don't have, which is any limit. So Tao is, oh yeah, another interesting thing about this, the chuò component, is that it's usually written last. So you write the rest of the character first, and then you write the chuò, even though very often characters are written left to right when you're filling in all the parts of the character. But when often when chuò is one of the components, let's see how this works in Beyond as well. You go through all the trouble of writing. First, you write the Z part, then you write the shui part, I think that is. Then you write the fang part, and then you write the chuò part for Beyond. Yeah. So so unlike Beyond, which is kind of a complicated character that doesn't show up very much, you need it to write the Four Great Vows. Tao shows up a lot, of course, if you're going to be reading anything in Chinese philosophy or Chinese Buddhism for sure. Mu, we've seen already. I'm going to move on to the nice, simple Shang. 1, 2, 3. And that isn't broken up into any components. And then the last character, which it is possible, I didn't go into this, it is possible to kind of go through this. You see it does have a PA component in it. It's kind of hard to see where that is. So sometimes in Chinese characters, people will get creative with the composition, how it's put together, and this doesn't have that many strokes in it. I would recommend not focusing too much on the composition of the character, but learning how to write it just like this. Okay. So we could also look at, oh yeah, here. This is kind of a nice character. J, element, realm. And I am going to, I believe it shows up in the Heart Sutra. Let's see. Yeah. Where does it show up in the Heart Sutra? When we say, oh yeah, when we say in English, we're chanting the Heart Sutra, and in some translations, we say no realm of eyes, and so forth, until no realm of mind consciousness. The realm of eyes is using a realm of eyes, and the realm of mind consciousness is this character Jie that we're encountering in that I've added on to the Four Great Vows. Oh yeah, and then this component here, which just means legs. And then the whole character. This character is a bit much, but so it has that component is drawn first, then the component gong, this bow in here, and then this shu down here. All right. Okay, we've almost reached the end of our time. I would, in kind of making use of this information going forward, I think it's important to, to know all three parts of a character: its body, speech, and mind, the shape of the character, the sound of the character and the meaning of the character. One of the reasons why it's good to know the sounds of the character is because you can remember bao, song, so on. That means I'm saying the Four Great Vows, and then you can remember which one is bao again, and it just helps to have um, uh, another handle on the characters. But then also it's easier, at least for me, it's a lot easier to remember the sounds in a sequence, and then to attach the characters to them. And of course, you have to know what it means. So if you just know bao, song, so on, but you don't know that that means I'm now saying the Four Great Vows, it's not very helpful. But if you know bao, song, so on, and you also know that it means bao is a vow or say or emit or launch. I like the image of launching the Four Great Vows. Uh, Sa is the Korean pronunciation for four, which in the pinyin is more like si or si. Uh, Bao, sa, no, actually, Bao, sa, four. Sa Ong, great. Hong is great. See, and Bao, Song, so on. So on is vows. It's the two character combination that means vows. So, kind of learning the how to say it and remembering how to say it helps you to helps you to have another handle on which characters go where and what they mean when you put them there. So I filled up about as much time as I can. We do, we will recite the four vows. Anybody have any, so feel free to contact me if you have questions, and that goes to anybody who's watching this as a recording. Um, uh, if you are watching it as a recording, leave a comment or try to figure out somewhere in the information included in this video will be my email address. You should be able to get that. But now, without further ado, we probably should recite the Four Great Vows and end. Let's see, so I'm going to share my screen again. Everyone can see the screen, correct? Okay. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them all. Delusions are endless. We vow to cut through them all. The teachings are infinite. We vow to learn them all. The Buddha way is inconceivable. We vow to attain it. May whatever excellent qualities we have gained from this practice be extended for the benefit of all beings. Thanks, everybody. Bye, and see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye.
Thanks, Deb. Thanks, Elizabeth. See ya. I'm going to end it now.
Okay.
Bye, everybody who's watching.